Hello and welcome to Top TV, a new podcast here on Logjam Media where we discuss episodes of top television shows, some of my favorite television shows. And this week, we are kicking off the show with Severance Season 2. I've been waiting 3 years for Season 2 here, kind of the state of television at this point. But very excited to finally dive into this weekly here. And I really wanted to do this because I don't have really anybody in my personal life that watches this show. And I kind of wanted to document my thoughts and theories and share interesting theories that I read online and such. Um, and give my perspective on those as we go through season 2. Then we can go back and look back at the end of this season and be like, this was right, this was wrong. And this is my favorite part of television. Weekly releases, being able to discuss this stuff every single week, new theories, this, that. So I'll give you a little bit of background with, I guess, my love of television and this show in particular. And also, excuse me, I'm coming over a cold. So if I sound very stuffed up, this is not my usual voice. I am hoping, it's been a week now, going around the whole house and everything. So hopefully we're on the other end of it. I feel a lot better, but still have a lingering cough and a little bit of stuffed up. So, my history with television is, of course, I am a big television fan, and it's actually amazing. I haven't done a TV really podcast for like general TV like this before. It's always been something I wanted to do, but kind of kept talking myself out of it. But this time I decided, you know what? Let's go ahead. Let's dive in. I really want to talk about Severance. But the show that really changed my life and the reason I podcast is the show Lost, which this show is compared to a lot. But that was a show that I was in 8th grade. 8th grade. I walked down the steps. My parents are watching it. I'd been wanting to watch it. I forgot what day it came on. I kept seeing, Dominic Monaghan in the trailers. I was a big Lord of the Rings fan, so being like, oh, Mary is in this. And that show was just right up my right up my alley. It really was like a show that spoke to me. I had never seen anything on TV really like that at that time. Of course, everything was more like not serialized, being like a procedural, and then kind of fitting in that serialized stuff as it went. But Lost was, really a show that changed that whole dynamic and created a whole storm of people and networks trying to come up with a competitor, or a new version of that. Flash Forward, Revolution, like The Event, all those shows on like NBC, ABC, CBS. Everybody was trying to find their next Lost, and none of them could really quite capture it the same way. This show, Severance, is really hitting a lot of those points for me as well. But before we really dive into the Severance side of stuff as well, just being able to, that really got me into TV, where I started going to Lost, going to message boards, going to, what does this say, Dark UFO, had like spoilers. I didn't really read the spoilers, but, they had message boards, they had theories. I remember reading a theory of everybody thinking the island was on the moon or something, like crazy stuff like that. And the first podcast I ever listened to was actually the official Lost podcast with Carlton Cuse and Damon Lindelof. So that kind of became why I even podcast, why I even follow fan theories and stuff like that. And then I've always been looking for shows that kind of match that for me, where I can do that, and eventually I did find shows that I love. Like, if I was going to give my top sci-fi shows, it's like Lost, Fringe, Battlestar Galactica, Dark. Severance. Shows like that are really the shows I started really finding and enjoying, and 12 Monkeys, keep looking for shows like that to fill the hole in my life. And now Severance is back. This was one that I did not catch weekly when it first came out. I think I heard really good things, and I don't know if I had Apple at the time, but then once I signed up for Apple in 2022 for some reason, or had a free trial or something, I binged season 1 in 2 days, and it was right after, I think it was like a week or two after the finale. So I have had the same amount of wait as most people here with the 3 years, but that was something that I really enjoyed, and I really would like, after I finish an episode or something, start going on to Reddit and the subreddit and make sure I'm looking at the episode discussions one by one, so I'm not getting spoiled on stuff that happened ahead of time. But I like the discussion part of it, which is why I'm doing this as well. And really, season 1 is one of the best, I think, seasons of TV as a whole. I know some people say it's slow, and I don't really feel like it is. Like, it hooked me probably by episode 3. I feel like you're fully hooked at that point. But I remember getting hooked pretty quickly. I felt like episode 1 even goes a little faster. So when people say it's slow, I'm kind of confused, because I do feel like, seeing Petey at the end of episode 1 and talking to Mark and stuff, and him explaining stuff to Mark's Audi, that feels like if back in the heyday, we'd be probably talking about like mid-season, right? This is happening in the first episode. And I mean, that kind of happens when you only have 9 for the first season. But still, that was something that, like, I was amazed at how much it actually does progress each time. I kind of thought like we'd be dealing with, never in my world did I think that the end of the first season, they would be putting in place this plan to have the OTC, the overtime contingent, to be able to get the innies outside in the real world. That was something that I never would have thought would be a season 1 thing. So to me, that progressed really, really a lot, and I feel like at a certain point you just get on board, and that finale is probably one of my favorite finales of all time as well, because it is like edge of the seat, uh even though there's not like like action happening. I think that is one thing that people sometimes think you need to have some sort of fights or action or something. The tension is all from, can these characters get out the truth to people that they can trust before Dylan has to let go of the 2 levers. And that is what you are riding the tension of, that wave, the whole 9th episode, because episode 8 starts as soon as Dylan does that, and ends as soon as Dylan turns those levers. Episode 9, we pick up right where that left off, and that whole buildup, it's escalating throughout the whole episode until you get to that ending. And yes, I think it's one of the greatest cliffhangers of all time as well. And while I was upset at first of like, oh my God, I can't believe we have to wait, it was immediately to me like, that is a really great episode. They had me hook, line, and sinker. I've actually just spent some time over the past few days watching reactions to that episode after my rewatch for the season, because it is just I love seeing other people's reactions to it. And hopefully I can sometime get somebody in my family or a friend to watch this along with me and dive into it, because it is such a great show. But we're going to kind of segue here to Severance Season 2. Now, I know it's 10 minutes in, but I just finished my rewatch of it earlier in the week, and then I was primed and ready for the episode dropping on Thursday. Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern is when these apparently drop. It's kind of how they did with Ted Lasso on Apple as well. That might actually be why I had Apple. I may have like signed up for Ted Lasso. But I bought Severance Season 1 on Blu-ray now, so I have that. I also have the full Ted Lasso on Blu-ray, so I don't always have to be subbed to Apple to revisit these, except for, I guess, Season 2. But yeah, let's dive in. Okay. So where we left off, like I said, everybody was on the OTC procedure. Dylan is holding down the fort in the security room, but Irv is driving to Bert's house. He's pounding on the door, he's screaming, "Bert!" We have Helly, who is telling the crowd here after we find out she is an Egan, and she finds that out as well. She's telling the crowd, "I am really Helly R. We are miserable. Severance is, everything that told me about Severance is a lie." All of that great information, and she's getting tackled. And then Mark sees the picture of his Audi's wife, who is Miss Casey, downstairs in the severed floor, but known as Gemma in the above, Audi world, and that she is alive. And he does get out, she is alive, while he's holding the picture, I believe, before everything flips and Milchek takes down Dylan. So from there, this picks up right where we left off, but maybe not, right? So we are going to be talking about episode 1 of season 2 called Hello, Miss Cobel, directed by Ben Stiller, written by Dan Erickson, and it premiered January 17th, 2025 on Apple TV Plus. And I just want to say, praise Kier that we are back. It was a long wait, and we pick up almost immediately where we left off. For Mark S. For any Mark, we are picking up right where we left off. We have questions right now, as this episode is all innies all the time. No outies. We do not know what happened in the Audi world. So that's what we're going with right now. And we pick up with Mark waking up in the elevator and trying to run to wellness to find Miss Casey. One thing I really liked about this scene, if you didn't know this took like 5 months to film, not straight on, but like over time they were doing stuff. And I think part of it was probably the camera movements, and the camera movements in this scene are so cool. It is something that was in the first teaser, and it just immediately is like, yes, we're back. And I think it's either Lumen has done some redesigning there, or Mark S is in such a mind-blowing place at this point because of what he's just learned. And he is thrown off from being in the outside world, that now that he is back in here, he is running. And when he's running, though, he's turning different ways. He's going the wrong way. It seems like he has to back up, turn a different way to get to wellness. So I think either they changed some of the layout, or it's just he's frazzled and he is running and he's like, you know what? The last time I was down here for him wasn't that long ago, but he has now experienced the outside world and has had conversations with his brother-in-law, with his sister, with Miss Cobel outside of here, and found out that his wife is Miss Casey. So he is going through a lot here. So that could also be another reason why it takes him so long to get there, and seemingly makes wrong turns, has to turn around. But from what we see is the wellness is boarded up, which for us definitely shows some time has passed. We'll try to figure out exactly the time that has passed. But he's looking for Miss Casey. Wellness is gone. He then goes back to MDR and meets a whole new set of coworkers who we know as Gwendolyn, Mark W., and Marco, I believe is all of their names there. And they're all played by really great actors. We have Alia Shawkat, who is maybe from Arrested Development, my favorite comedy of all time as well, by the way. So seeing her in this is great. She was also just in Skeleton Crew in Star Wars doing the voice of Kim there. So that was really cool, that she's kind of having this, I guess, career renaissance since we're seeing her in more stuff, for me anyway. So we have let me just try to get all their names. Bob Balaban is who played Mark W. I know him from Seinfeld. He played the NBC, like the NBC CEO, or whoever is in charge of programming on Seinfeld when they were selling the Seinfeld pilot, George and Jerry in Seinfeld. That whole season 4 arc, he was the CEO of that, or like the person that makes it. Russell Dalrymple. That's right. Had to look that up. He is Mark W. We have Alia Shawkat as Gwendolyn Y. We have Stefano Caranante is Dario R. Sorry, I think I said Marco, but I saw somebody call him that. Let me fix that. Then we have Dario R and Gwendolyn Y. And these are the new set of coworkers for Mark S. And one of the best things about this too is that there's another Mark, and that Mark W is like, would you like to go by a different name so that way, we can easily don't have to keep saying each other's last initials. That was a really funny bit. And they're all from like different branches that are now transferred here, and we get the whole thing of like Mark S is now having them as his new team, and we meet Miss Huang, who is like the Milchek replacement, as Milchek is now the Cobel replacement. And Huang does this the round ball game, and they're doing it in the kitchenette, and she is like a literal child. I think the actress is 18, but like she seems younger than that, and everybody is thrown off by it. Mark W brings up, "Why are you a child?" To which she says, "Because of when I was born," which is a very logical answer and correct answer. But so we get that nice bit, but we also have Mark S be like, and he goes back into the mode of almost like playing. He's almost in the Helly R role from season 1, but he also has a little bit more savvy with it. And what I mean by that is he knows what this game is, and he is going to give an answer that sounds good, but from what we see, his intentions are not good, right? He says he meets 4 new friends, in which Miss Huang has to correct him and say, "I'm a supervisor, I cannot be your friend." So he gives her this menacing read by Adam Scott here with the 3 new friends and like apologizing to her. But it's just a really cool performance by Adam Scott here. You can feel the tension as he is like, obviously he said the 4 friends thing because that's how Milchek would have handled it, right? So things are kind of changing here, and you get but he's not really seeing them as friends, right? He immediately makes a note and frames Mark W for writing this note and puts it in his pocket, which I guess the code detectors might be real. They figured it out, or somehow else they knew it was in there. We still don't know the answer on the code detectors, if that's really a thing. So, Mark S comes in the next day, and Milchek is reading this, and I love Adam Scott's portrayal here too. This is very like a very Ben Wyatt read of the script here, where he's like feigning like, "Oh man, like that's what he said," and then being like, "Oh, you guys think I wrote that?" Um, and then he says, "I guess you haven't seen what I've done to the kitchenette yet." We don't actually know if he did anything to it. I think it is almost like a little bit of a, let me have Milchek go that way while I run to his office. And which he does. He runs to the office and gets the message out to the board. The last time he was in this office, by the way, Milchek and him have a conversation saying it has been 5 months since the events of the season 1 finale, and that now these innies are heroes. And I don't know how true that is. I think we see Milchek's boxes still as he's unpacking his office later in the episode, we do see that the screensaver still says good morning, Miss Cobel, in which he's furious that it still says that. So that could be because it's 5 months, or it could just be he's like, hey, show me some respect. I've taken out, I've taken over. This should be fixed pretty easily. But the newspaper is the Kier Chronicle. There's no date on it, but it says innies blow the whistle. But this picture of them, I'm going to try to put it on the screen here, of them in the parade. I think it's from a real parade, somebody pointed out. I think it's from Brazil. And the photo of them in the car is just, it looks like their photoshopped photo that they took in season 1 when Helly R joined the team, and they were replacing the PD photo. So, again, I don't think we can take for granted here, obviously, what Milchick is saying here, which means I don't know if we can already know for true if the 5 months is true. There's a lot of redacted on this newspaper too, but it does mention that Dr. Rick and Hale is the one that did the benediction. I don't think that's true either. And they put another book title here, These Values 9, How I Let Kieran. I do think that's fake as well. I think what they're trying to do here is that Milchick knows about the book. He's the one that found it, right? And, he's the one that got it from Cobel and started reading it, and is the one that left it in the conference room. So it mentions the UUR here. Author of such hits as the UUR and These Values 9, How I Let Kieran. So I think he understands. We know that they're listening. They play sound clips in the claymation video of stuff that we thought the innies were saying to each other without anybody else knowing. Like Irv saying, let's burn this place down. And Mark S saying to O&D, like, we don't need this place, let's do this, right? Those clips from the claymation video that we'll talk about shortly, we didn't think anybody was listening at that point. But they had microphones, and it sounds like the audio on those claymation scenes sounds kind of like we pulled this off of a videotape. And I think that means that they know that they got a hold of the book, right? The UUR. And they might know that these people kind of worship Rickon. So putting in the newspaper here that he also wrote a book called These Values 9, How I Let Kieran, might be like, oh, we trust this guy. He's saying let Kieran. We should let Kieran. That could kind of be what this newspaper is alluding to here, and why Rickon Hale is mentioned in it. I don't think Rickon is all of a sudden going to be pro Lumen. He's been kind of anti the severance procedure, and I'm sure Devin will have filled him in on that the Mark S that Rickon was talking to at the party was actually the innie, and I think, unless if he goes in undercover or something, but I do think Rickon is not writing a book, How I Let Kieran. That's my thought there. So we don't know. Milchick says they're heroes. Everybody loves you. You're whistleblowers. And we are trying to be better. I locked you up like an animal last time you were here. And as a unsevered person, that will haunt me, is kind of what Milchick says. I have to live with that. And so then we fast forward to the sabotaging of Mark W. and Mark S getting in to contact the board, demands his team back. Milchick looks to be firing Mark, and it's this kind of weird POV where it almost looks like it's shutting down. Like, I don't know. Like, it doesn't, we kind of see it from Mark S's eyes, I think. Maybe this is how it always looks to him when he's switching. But it seems like maybe there's a little bit more time passing here, as then he steps out and there's a new painting as soon as you come out of the elevator, and something like Kier pardons his I forget what it says, but it's like Kier pardoning people. But it looks like it looks like four people buried into the ground with only their heads above, and like Kier Egan holding a big sword. And it feels very like biblical, right? Like I feel like this is what you get when you watch the show anyway. Like in season one, it feels like Kier, the way Cobel talks about too, like praise Kier, all that kind of stuff, feels very biblical. She has a whole shrine to him in her house. But it also feels I wonder why they feel like they have to do this. I guess it is to give the innies some sort of religious experience. I don't know if all of Lumen buys into this. Like, is the board drinking the Kier Kool-Aid? I don't know. But the people on the actual like floor, that the severed floor, these people, maybe it gives them that higher purpose is kind of what they're trying to do. And it just feels very biblical, like Kier pardoning people that have done him wrong, and it shows, oh, he has, it's kind of like God forgiving you for your sins is kind of what it feels like, but with some like real energy too. Like if we look at the painting from last season that has like, Kier looking down on these people that are huddled below him, and those are like the people's masks that they're wearing at the waffle party and stuff. Again, feels very biblical, almost like a Moses getting the 10 Commandments, or here is God striking you down, because it has like the lightning bolt behind them and all of that. That's what it kind of feels like. And I wonder if the purpose of it is because they all believe it, or if it's just to try to give those severed innies a purpose and a higher calling, and to make them continue to work, right? Like if they feel like they're fulfilling their lives by doing something that Kier, that they can look up to, like Kier Egan. And it's taken this man who was the first CEO and the founder, right, and raising him to a certain level. We see Miss Huang playing with one of those, air bubble games type thing, handheld things where you have to like try to get the rings on, in this case, Kier Egan's hands, and it like pushes the air bubbles through. Again, he's like raised to that type of status here. We see him fly in on the claymation video. Really funny how they do all this. But when he comes back, when Mark S comes back, they come back one at a time. We get Dylan, and then them immediately questioning, like, did it work? Dylan was in the security office the whole time. He has no clue if it worked or not. We have Irv come back, and he's pounding on the elevator saying, asking for Bert. And then we have Helly R. Or do we? That's a question that'll come back throughout the time. And we have some maybe evidence for and evidence against that theory. We'll get to that. But they all have to go to the break room, and they watch the claymation video. And this is like clips from the episode, put the claymation. And, like I said before, it has like the sound clips of stuff that we thought was maybe not as able to be picked up, right? Because you feel like then Lumen may have been able to prevent some of this stuff, but maybe they just didn't take it seriously at that time. But I also love how when Irv says, let's burn this place down, they do a little reference to my favorite Christmas claymation movie, which is A Year Without a Santa Claus, as he does like a spin, like the heat miser, and he has like little heat misers next to him. I thought that was really cool reference to that. Just something I grew up with, and it's my favorite of the claymation Christmas movies. So then they have a decision to make after watching this. They say, we don't want to keep you here if you don't want to be here. So if you want to stay here, just be at your workstation by the end of the day, start your work, and we'll know that you want to be here. And Milchick gives them time to talk about this. And the four of them talk. And this is when they actually are able to whisper and spill the details. which Mark does. Mark is able to spill all the details. He says, I was at my brother-in-law's place. It was Rickon, the guy who wrote the book. And, my wife was Mrs. Casey, and she's here and I got to get her. It's pretty much what he lays out. And then we get Helly, who does not spill the details. She says she was in an apartment by herself watching a nature documentary while having a shirt that says Save the Gorillas on. That's it. Right? And that there's like a night gardener outside and his brother is a cop or whatever that they're investigating. Irv questions the night gardener thing, but he also does not really want to share. He says, I just know that the world up there is not the world we know. And he is heartbroken, of course, that he saw Bert with his husband. And he realizes now he can never be with Bert is probably his main concern here. And it's like, what am I even living here for? And we have Irv and Dylan have this great talk. Dylan, one of the funniest people on TV right now. I feel like Zach Cherry does a great job. And he has this line of like, so what if Bert has a hot husband? Like, such a great line. Helly and Mark talk about Gemma and Miss Casey. So this is also where people are a little suspicious because she does mention like your Audi bought her that ring, not you. And though I think, again, we'll talk about that later. Then Milchick talks to Dylan and offers like a wing, like a visitation center for the Audi family to come meet the innie. Tells Dylan not to say anything because he's trying to frame this as this will just dig a wedge between you guys. But really, I think Milchick is hoping that this causes the divide. Him not being able to share it, and when they find out he's hiding it or whatever, that will cause a divide here. The team is going to meet in the MDR room. They start working on their computers. Mark works on the Cold Harbor file, and this episode ends with it flashing and showing Gemma's face with the 68% that his file is at. So is this what they're doing? Now theories are abounding, right? Is this what they're doing? Are they refining the people on the testing floor? People pointed out that the image, I'll try to put that up on here too, has like the what's it called? The 5 personality things that the 4 tempers, which are dread, woe, malice, and frolic. As you can see at the bottom here, that's what these letters stand for. Okay, well that's a theory going around that this could be what Gemma or what they are refining is maybe their personalities, maybe wiping their memories. We don't know. But that is something to keep an eye on because it even said Cold Harbor on the image that shows Gemma's face. And I think it was the filming title that they used for season 2, kind of like how they used Tumwater as the filming title for season 1. So it could mean a lot. Eagle Eye fans also saw that Helly's file says Santa Mira, which is the setting of the invasion of the Body Snatchers. So this is where the biggest theory of the episode is coming from. There's a lot of people speculating that Helly R here is actually Helena Egan, and that she didn't actually go back in as her innie, but she's there as her outie to spy on the rest of MDR. There's some things that seem to point to this. They really show close up her having maybe fumble looking for the computer switch. So that's one thing. 2, we have some people are really saying like the way that she comes out of the elevator or shock and not wanting to really reciprocate the hug with Mark at first could be a sign there as well. And then 3, this as well. This file, Body Snatchers, could be that it is obviously trying to show us that, hey, this is actually somebody, while they share the same body, this is not actually Helly R that's here. So I think that'd be clever. I think there's also some other things that are making people think that as well. People kind of questioning why she would be so willing to stay and help Mark in that regard. Here's the thing, because she was trying to um, kill herself in the first season. Some people being like, "Hey, why would she want to stay?" I don't think it really conflicts her character to want to stay this time. She now knows who she is on the outside, right? She knows that anytime she leaves, Helena is just probably going to send her back down there because this rides on her. You know, that talk she had with Jamie and the CEO in the finale last year or 3 years ago was like, one, she wanted everybody to have these as a kid. She's like, these are so pretty. Everybody should have these. And Jay Megan is like, this can happen because of you. With this whole reason they sent her down there is to show how great it is. So that way they can really have everybody be on board and it not get outlawed. That is the main point of why Helly R is doing that. So, of course, if she tries to get out and end her any self, she just knows that nothing is going to change, right? Nothing is going to change. But the way she can enact change is by helping the rest of MDR figure out what's going on here and put a stop to it. So I don't think it is too against Helly R here. There's also a really good part here where when she's talking with Mark about Gemma, and he is saying like he is the same, like me and him are the same, talking about Mark S and Mark Scout, Innie and Outie, and she really refutes this. She's like, no, and this is where it can work for both ways, by the way, where she's like, no, our Outie selves are not us. That sounds pretty legit for Helly R as well, because she now knows that Helly R is an Egan and is part of the reason why everybody is severed down here and why this company is doing evil things. She's part of the reason. She's part of the cause. That's also why she probably lies when she did when she didn't tell them what happened. So that's another. And why you can also say that is Helena's, because Helena might be upset that Mark thinks that the Innie and Outie are the same because she didn't see the Innie as a real person, and also because the Innie tried to kill her. So I do think there can be like both sides here. You also have the lie she tells about the Night Gardener and stuff. I don't think Helly R knew what type of weather it was outside, why there'd be a gardener in the winter, anything like that. She stayed inside the Lumen building the whole time at the ball, at the gala thing that she's making a speech for. So she wouldn't actually know if it would make sense for a gardener to be outside or not. She has no idea what the weather's like. So when Irving catches this, because he did drive outside, he did know it was night, he did know that it would be kind of silly for a gardener to be out there. I think Helena would have came up with a better story. So there are things for and against both of these this theory. I think it's more likely this is our Helly R, but I know the Helena theory is taking off so much and people are kind of running with it without and thinking it is for sure. I don't think we can go and say it's for sure yet. I would probably pull back on that a little bit, but some people are saying I was right, it's Helena, and I'm like, calm down a bit, we don't know. One of the theories that I saw somebody speculate somewhere was that next week might be an episode that's all about the Outies. So this week was called Hello Miss Cobel. Next week's episode, if you look on Apple TV Plus, it says Goodbye Mrs. Selvig. So these are two kind of like matching episode titles, right? But Hello Miss Cobel is, Miss Cobel is how they knew Mrs. Selvig in here. So makes sense, it's kind of all innies. Also, the title comes from, of course, the screensaver on Milchick's computer now. But we also have the next week's episode, if it's called Goodbye Mrs. Selvig, Miss Selvig is how they know everybody outside. Maybe next week is all outies. And I think we might be able to match up stuff we see in this episode with the outie stuff. So what I mean by is like we might see Mark. It looks like some trailers show like Milchick trying to bring Mark back and convincing him. So we might see like him decide to go. We might see what happened during that time where it looked like he was getting fired, and then the whole team comes back. We might be able to see the opposite side of that. We might be able to see all of that stuff on what was going on in the outside world during that time. And we might get the answer of, has it actually been 5 months? Because Milchick has been still setting up everything. The Cobel screen still says, hello, Miss Cobel. So for me, I would think it's less than 5 months. I think that is something they made up. I don't know why they would make that up, but that is something I'm thinking. And then, of course, we also have Milchick is starting to try to cause this divide between them by telling Dylan about the Audi family visitation suite, which we don't even know if it will actually do what it says. Dylan asks, so that means I can meet my family? And Milchick doesn't say yes. He says, if you take the name literally, yes. So questions abound here on what will happen with that. I think Dylan, of course, will either tell them at some point or they'll be able to get past it. I do think Helly did not say who she was because I do think she might think that would cause everybody else to not trust her. Especially this happens right after Mark S. says, I'm married to Miss Casey and wellness is gone. I need to find her. And she pretty much immediately does not tell her story here. Because then if you know she is an Egan and is part of the reason why you are down there, would you trust her? Would you think that, oh, maybe this is actually the Audi self? Maybe they didn't let Helly back in. Or, like theories would abound. Or like maybe I take you hostage and convince them to let Gemma out. Like there is stuff that could cause friction if everybody did know that Helly was an Egan. So I think it was probably actually smart for her not to tell anybody, as much as I am frustrated and wanted that information to be shared. But that's that. That is our discussion of episode 1 of season 2. Really looking forward to next week, especially if it is all Audi. I really want to see what Mark Scout is doing, what the fallout was with Devin, hearing she's alive. I want to see more Rickon. Rickon's one of the best characters on the show. So I want to see all of that. And of course, we haven't seen Miss Cobel yet or Miss Selvig. So we'll get to see her in this episode, I'm assuming, by the title. Yeah. So that'll wrap us up here. If you want to follow us or contact us on any social media platform, TopTVPod is the handle. TopTVPod@gmail.com for emails. I will also accept, if you want to send me a recommendation for a TV show that is something you think I would like and maybe could talk about on the podcast, send those over. But that is it. Have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you next time when we talk Severance Season 2, Episode 2. Goodbye, Mrs. Selvig.